Sweep Spot is a member of the Mice Chat Podcast Network. MicePod.com. Now, the magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweep Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn, your host, and my co-host Ken. How you doing, Ken?
Oh, I'm a little under the weather, but I'm doing all right. Glad to be here.
All right. This is episode 164. Can you believe that?
Holy moly, 164. Oh,
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention a few things before we get started. Of course, we wanted to mention our book, Cleaning the Kingdom. You can get that several different ways. You can get it, the best way is at our website at thesweepspot.com. And
that is probably a lot faster delivery than getting it at someplace like Amazon.
yeah, it's priority mail and they're autographed copies.
Yeah, you get them autographed. You might, if you get it on Amazon, you might not get an autographed copy, and it might be quite a while before you get it.
You definitely won't get one on Amazon. Unless you look for the seller. There's several different sellers, and one is the Sweep Spot, and that is pretty much the same. I mean, it's coming from my house, and I have signed copies here. So, anyways, you can also do Nook and Kindle.
Yeah, if you're into ebooks, and I think a lot of you are because you're podcast listeners, go ahead and find us on there. The only difference is we can't autograph it.
No, cannot. But, so those are several ways you can get the book. I also wanted to mention, we've been on a couple of podcasts in the past few weeks, and one of them is the Ears Up podcast. That's Ears, E-A-R-Z, Up, all one word. Ears Up podcast, and that was a great interview. I think we were on there for 50 minutes or 45 minutes. So check that one out. We were also on Diz After Dark, and I don't think it's on their website yet, but you can go to iTunes and download that episode. And then we're on the the Mouse Chatter.
Well, there was Mad Hatter Chatter.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
I messed it up.
You were on there without me.
Yeah, it was on there.
Without
you.
me. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah,
I can't be everywhere at once
No.
in high demand.
Speaking of us not being able to be everywhere at once, I'm not going to be there, but you're going to be somewhere on the 26th.
Yeah, for those of you who are early downloaders of the podcast, on Saturday, September 26th, that's 2015, I will be speaking at Friends of the Mouse. Friends of the Mouse, you can find them online. You can find them also on Facebook. They will be having an event on Saturday, September 26th in Garden Grove at the Garden Grove Historical Society. And it'll be the events from 12:30 to 4:30. A part of that, it's not the whole 4 hours is not going to be me, but I will be speaking and I will be signing and selling books. So if you already have your copies, come buy more. But if you already have your copies, I'll still autograph them there. But if you don't have a copy yet, come on down, buy one, and I'll autograph. I'm not sure what the deal is as far as membership. You might have to join the club, but it's not very expensive, and it's a great club, so go for it.
Awesome. And I think that'll do it. So let's get going into the current events. Now we're going to have the current events. What's poppin', Ken?
Well, we'll get to that, Lynn. We'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll tell you what's current. I'm still under the weather. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll get better. Let's see now. Well, you know, it seems like every podcast we're bringing you some news about Star Wars because word got out that Disney plans to quote-unquote break ground on the Star Wars area next year. So my guess is probably really late next year. But from an Orange County Register story, Tom Staggs, Disney's chief operating officer, gave on Thursday the first piece of timeline for the proposed and much anticipated lands. I'm pleased to announce that we'll start construction on both. He means both Disneyland and Walt Disney Worlds in 2016. He was telling this to the Bank of America Merrill Lynch Media Communications and Entertainment Conference in Beverly Hills, which I'm sure is a laugh riot. He said that Disney officials are not ready to announce the opening date. So that doesn't give a lot of time to make preparations because they're going to have to move stuff around.
Yeah, they're going to have to build the new, whatever they're getting rid of, they need to build that somewhere else, right?
Yeah, if they're going to have it.
Yeah.
You know, we keep hearing it's going to be north of the Big Thunder Ranch area where Circle D Corral is, the backstage ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking they really should do it like Universal did with Harry Potter in Florida and build it kind of between connecting the two parks, you know, Tomorrowland and Hollywood. And they could always relocate the shuttle drop off. You know, they could always relocate the East Esplanade stuff. Mm-hmm. But it just seems, I just don't know how it's going to flow theme-wise to have it back north of Frontierland or north of Fantasyland. I just don't know how that's going to work.
But what I'm thinking, this is just, you know, we could talk about it, but we don't know. But what I'm thinking is that front area from the path, from the ramp, you know, the pathway there, from that pathway would be like the beginning of the entrance, but it would be like a slow, gradual, like maybe a lot of trees and kind of building to it. And then there's that railroad track there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go underneath the railroad track and come up, and then the reveal is there.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they handle it.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing, but it could be totally.
It just seems to me that there's problems with Tomorrowland and problems with the Hollywood area, and they could solve them both by bringing Star Wars to both of those and connecting the two parks that way. And anyway, I mean, yes, Universal did it already with Harry Potter, but there's no reason why Disney can't adapt that to Star Wars. Oh well.
What do you think about? I mean, I think when we had that show, you know, we talked about this, but something came to mind, and we said, well, what's going to happen to Star Tours? Well, do you think?
Well, right. I mean,
do you think Star Tours will just go, like, just gone? Because one of the attractions they're going to have there isn't it a similar simulator type attraction? That's what it seemed like. They didn't go into specifics, but it seemed like.
Now we're getting into armchair imagineering.
I know.
You know, probably the easiest thing to do would be to have a whole new Star Tours there, and they could keep the simulators and the building for Star Tours where it is and retheme it to something else.
Like Iron Man or something like.
Yeah, I mean something else that they could do. Or maybe you could be riding these vehicles that get shrunken down and they go into a water molecule. I don't know. Never mind.
You don't know, Ken. They could bring back the Bathroom of Tomorrow.
Well, they could bring back the Wonders of Life attraction called Body Wars from Epcot. They could just stick it in where they could just keep the simulators there and do it.
That's true.
But like if they did it my way, where you connect the two parks, they wouldn't have to move Star Tours. It would stay right there. It's gonna be interesting to see how this shakes out. But tied into that whole idea of having to move stuff backstage, another story that comes from the Orange County Register is about the Pope House. Now, this is not a Catholic thing. It's a nearly 90-year-old one-story house known as the Pope House that sits behind the scenes of Disneyland, and it could be moved to make room for Star Wars Land. One of the hints that's in the public domain and how the Orange County Register found out, the possible relocation of the Pope House, a backstage structure in the resort's northern behind-the-scenes support area, is that on August 20th, Disney filed a permit application with the city of Anaheim to assess moving the house. The potential location, according to the permit application, would be a parking lot just south of Ball Road, adjacent to the building that serves as administrative headquarters for the resort. Now, you and I know that parking lot. It's a little lot there. So I don't know. Well, I'll get to that in just a second. Let's see. The house is used as an office by the crew that tends Disneyland's equine cast. If the resort moves the structure to the parking lot referred to in the permit, it would be in an area where it could potentially be seen by visitors. So I guess the implication there is it might be like this little side attraction that, you can stop by and see the horses. I don't know if that would work because it's not like there's a lot of empty space back there, and you have people parking there for business purposes, and I just don't think so. But I mean, it's a nice thought that, hey, gee, maybe people will be able to stop by and see the horses backstage there, but I don't think so.
No,
and you're not going to want to like fronting Ball Road. So anyway, the house was originally built in the 1920s near what is present-day Harbor Boulevard. It was moved during Disneyland's construction in the 1950s to the backstage area. It became the home of Owen and Dolly Pope, who were contracted by Walt Disney to train and outfit the horses, mules, and other four-legged animals used at the park for its opening day in 1955. The Popes lived in the home for many years, caring for the animals at the Circle de Corral. The house, now there's a book I'd like to read from the Popes. Anyway, the house was outfitted with specialized equipment, allowing them to make the repair of the harnesses used by the horses and mules. The Popes were the only people to live in the house, though in later years, an occasional hand at the corral would spend the night to watch over a sick horse. So yeah, the Popes ended up going off to Walt Disney World to help out there. So they moved there to Florida in January of 1971 to oversee the construction of the Tri-Circle D Ranch there, which is now part of Fort Wilderness Resort. And they retired in 1975. So wow.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway,
we will see. All these little changes we'll report as we hear about them, and
yeah, they can't build the new stuff without moving something old. So
yeah,
that's the thing. Something's going to have to be taken out first or moved first or whatever before construction of what's new can take place. There's no empty lot or anything like that.
Makes me wonder, where would they put the parade? Because I think the parade building would be something that's going to go too, right? Where would they put that?
Yeah, we'll have to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, crazy.
It's all speculation. So Disney's Aladdin musical is going to be replaced by a Frozen musical. That's right. Disney is not ready to let it go. They are going to, this Aladdin show has been going on in California Adventure for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
From the Orange County Register again, the popular Aladdin, a musical spectacular, which has played for more than a decade in the Hyperion Theater at Disney California Adventure, will be replaced by a new Frozen-inspired musical. And Aladdin's final performance will be on January 10th.
What do you think of that, Ken?
Well, I'm surprised that they haven't done this already, like changed it already. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand there's a lot of people who really like the Aladdin show, but you kind of figure, these venues are meant to be able to have different shows.
Been 12 years, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's been a while. So, I mean, a lot of shows don't last that long. So, I think it's okay. I mean, I think they'll do a good job with whatever they replace, with the Frozen, however they do it. And I'm sure it will be. I've never seen Aladdin, but I've heard good things about it. And I think it's time for a change.
Yeah, we'll have a link to that, and as well as the official Disney Parks blog and our current events notes that'll be going up in our show notes on our website, www.thesweepspot.com. And finally, we were going to talk about what's popping. Something near and dear to our heart as sweepers was the popcorn at the park. And for as long as I can remember, it was Orville Redenbacher popcorn. And I remember one day someone actually said that they saw him in the park along with his grandson who appeared in some of his commercials, sitting there waiting for the parade one day. So I was like, oh, okay. That's gone. Pop Secret is going to become the official popcorn of Disney. So I think Orville Redenbacher is currently owned by ConAgra. All these brands are owned by one big conglomerate or another, and ConAgra is a big food conglomerate, and Orville Redenbacher is owned by that. But Pop Secret is owned by Diamond Foods Incorporated, which I think sells various food products like various kinds of nuts and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it announced that it's entered into a long-term strategic alliance agreement with the Walt Disney World Resort and Disneyland Resort, tied to its Pop Secret brand premium popcorn. So now, Pop Secret's the official popcorn of Walt Disney World Resort in Florida and Disneyland Resort in California. And Diamond Foods also plans to advertise on Disney-owned channels like ABC Family and the Disney Channel. So there's going to be all kinds of little tie-ins, but you know what? Whichever brand of popcorn it is, it's all messy. Messy. So
I'm sure it'll be good either way.
Yeah, it's salty, it's buttery, it's popcorn.
Not microwavable, or these... They're not going to be cooking with microwaves?
No, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the existing carts. Okay. They're not going to have the Orville Redenbacher signage on them, that's for sure. But,
yeah. All right. Well,
and that's what's current. I mean, you're current if you're listening to us when you download us in a relatively early download. And if you're listening to us sometime later in the future, then this is like a historical archive.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Ken.
All right. I'm eager to get to the rest of the show.
Okay, this week we're going to welcome another guest to our show, and that is Rick Moore. He's a former Disneyland custodian, and he was actually there for the summer of 1975. So welcome to our show, Rick.
Thanks, guys. I enjoyed reading your book.
Cool.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. Anyone who wants to say that is always welcome on the show.
I figured that's probably what it would take to get on. So,
There you go. Well, great. Tell us a little bit about why you went to work at Disneyland and when, just kind of a time frame of how that happened.
Well, I just finished my freshman year at college and needed a summer job. And I thought it was, my school got out kind of late. I mean, we didn't get out till like the 20th of June or something. So I thought I'd kind of missed the window on Disneyland, but a friend of mine who went to the same school was hired as a custodian, not a custodian, as a busboy. And he suggested, they're still looking for people, so, why don't you give it a try? And I went down and applied and ended up in what was then janitorial.
Cool. And so obviously you were hired, and the orientation was at the old administration building.
Yeah, it was in the old admin building, and we went out and did the little tour of the park. I still remember going back behind Small World and seeing all the computers back there, and eating a hamburger out at the Hungry Bear restaurant. That kind of stuff.
I think we did that too at the Hungry Bear.
I did mine at Space Place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they weren't, Space Place was only open intermittently back then, and so that's where I had mine.
For some reason, when I was the first time I hired in for Plaza Inn, they had our little lunch at the hotel. We had to get on the hotel tram, and they took us there, and we had like sandwiches or something. So I don't know what the reason was for that, but cool. Well, so you were hired in a custodial, and then they had the probably the training with custodial for what, 2 days or something like that.
I'm trying to remember what we did, but it was pretty much kind of thrown into things. Because I remember my first shift was out on Main Street around the entry point there.
Right.
And this was right at the end of June, I believe. And I remember my foreman kind of walking me around and giving me a few pointers here and there, but it was kind of a different job than I think it has become over the years, because when I was over there today, as a matter of fact, when I see the sweepers over there now, they've got the side packs with the maps and the towels and the sometimes they got hats and shorts and all. We didn't have any of that stuff. I mean, they sent you out into the park with your pan and broom, and that was it. And so that's pretty much what I did the whole summer. So.
Wow. So you were there in the summer of '75, and there was quite a bit going on that summer. That was America Sings opened that summer.
Well,
it opened the year before.
Yeah,
1974.
1974, but this was the 20th anniversary of the park.
Right, but it was going on, and Space Mountain was being built, I assume.
Yeah, Space Mountain was under construction because I had to walk by the construction site every day when I came in, because I used to come into the park through Tomorrowland.
Right.
Through the gate over there, and then walk on over, and the offices, the janitorial offices at that time were right behind Carnation Gardens.
Yes.
You didn't have the pass through that you have today, that takes you through to the restaurants and things. So there was a a little gate or a door or something, I'm trying to remember now, kind of fairly near the stage there that took you back into the janitorial office.
Right, that was probably still in place when I was there, and I think when Lynn was there too.
Yeah, just one summer for me. Yeah. Wow. So okay, so I'm just trying to get a picture of the park back then, the time frame and what was going on. You have Country Bear.
Yeah, it was a very different place.
Oh yeah.
In '75 than it was probably by the time you guys got there, and by the time, and certainly by today.
Oh yeah.
You only had one roller coaster in the whole park, and that was the Matterhorn. Space Mountain was being built. Thunder Mountain was still 2 or 3 years away, and Splash Mountain didn't come online until I think '89 or something like that.
Right.
So,
the Country Bears Bear Country was only 3 years old or so.
Wow.
Right.
And Haunted Mansion was only 6 years old.
Yeah, the three busiest attractions in the park were the Matterhorn, Pirates of the Caribbean, and the Haunted Mansion.
Right.
And I worked the mansion almost every shift the entire summer. So I was running around out there, between the train station and the entrance to Bear Country, pretty much the whole time.
Did you get assigned like a summer shift in terms of like basically the same location and the same hours?
Yeah, I had the same shift, with the exception of 2 or 3 shifts at the very beginning of the time I worked there, and one shift at the very end. I worked the entire time, 1:30 to 8, during July, and 1:30 to 10 in August at the same spot, Haunted Mansion, the whole time.
Wow. That's a busy area.
And it sounds like the same coverage area that existed while we were there. Basically from, well, now it's Critter Country, but from where the Bear Country entrance would be over to the train station.
Right. Yeah, that was my beat, I guess you'd say. And so I wandered around there all day and tried to pop into the mansion a couple times a shift just to cool off, if nothing else, and check out things in there. But I did work one shift in New Orleans Square. I opened New Orleans Square one day. That's the only time in my life that I've ever been in the park for 30 minutes when there was nobody in there. And that was I know you guys have done that, but that was kind of a weird thing, to walk in the gate about 7:15 and look around and, with the exception of maybe a maintenance guy or two, there wasn't a soul in there.
Yeah, I love
just
that.
some delivery trucks or maybe something like that, but there's nothing. It's relatively quiet compared to how it's going to be in a few hours.
Yeah, and the Haunted Mansion at that time, it was a very busy place while the sun was up. But at 8 o'clock, and I didn't realize this until I got into August and I had a later shift. But at 8 o'clock, it was like somebody flipped a switch over there. And, I discovered that people are kind of like moths, they go toward the light. And, I mean, the people just disappeared. And, by about 8:30, you could shoot a cannon off in front of the Haunted Mansion. You wouldn't hit anybody. The line went down to nothing. Got very quiet and cool and nice over there, compared to today. I was there Saturday night at 8:15. We tried to go from Critter Country out to Main Street, and it was a nightmare. I mean, the crowds in front of the mansion were literally just locked up. I've seen faster traffic through LA at rush hour.
Yeah, the West Side used to be really, really quiet at night. Before Fantasmic, which started in 1992. Now, Splash Mountain opened in 89, and that would draw some people over there. But even then, they were in line for Splash Mountain, and when they were done riding it, they were, usually leaving the area. The river would be shut down except for the Mark Twain. And it's just very quiet over on that side of the park at night until Fantasmic started in 1992. And then it was like, huge crowds and lots of noise and light and yeah.
Oh yeah, when my wife and I started going there with annual passes in 1987, we would quite often go out and sit out there by the river, wait for the fireworks. And of course, you can't do that anymore. They've taken all the benches out, and there's about 10,000 people that are all trying to get in to see Fantasmic.
Wow. Was the popcorn cart over right there where it is now still?
Yeah, I believe it was. It never was. It's funny. I never had much of an issue with that around there.
Oh, really?
It's funny because when I read your book and I read all the things that you guys had to deal with over the years, I really had very little of that. Other than just a lot of people and people leaving stuff on the benches or under the benches and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, one of the things I noticed in your book, you talked about assigning people to do lines, and we never did that. We didn't touch the line at the Haunted Mansion until about 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, when all the people were out of there.
Wow.
And the guy that came on after me in the area, I think he came on at about 7 o'clock or something. He would go in with a push broom and sweep the whole line area out. Probably about 9 o'clock or so, and when there was nobody back there. But we never ventured in there during the day. That wasn't ever assigned or taught or anything. So,
or maybe you just didn't do it. Huh. No,
Well, that's possible, but my
it's like
foreman,
us with the small world boats. We're like, we used to clean pirate boats, but how come we used to never clean small world boats? Maybe we were supposed to, and we just didn't realize it.
yeah, well, the foreman never said anything about it, and nobody trained
Well,
me on it. So,
they used to be a lot more stringent about allowing items in the line. Guests had to dispose of a lot of their refreshments and everything before they would actually get to the interior part of of a line. So that was part of it. Probably was that nowadays they're much more lax. I think it pretty much happened during the Paul Pressler era. It was like they wanted to sell. They wouldn't before this. They wouldn't sell to lines. If you were in a vending cart, you could be right next to a line. They wouldn't sell to somebody who was in a line. And then they changed that policy, and they said we're going to have to let people bring the refreshments into the inside part of the queue areas. And so of course that meant there was more mess.
well, I know there was a prodigious amount of stuff in there by 9:00. I mean, the guy would sweep up a pretty significant pile, but that was just the nightly routine. We didn't go in there during the day at all as far as going into the lines. I mean, we went into the mansion lobby and the elevators and the portrait hallway and all that stuff, but never ventured into the lines at all.
Wow. Well, do you have any stories or memories or something that you'd like to, you've read our book and maybe have some similar stories or not, something different?
Well, I guess one of the things I remember, the mansion, of course, was my one place to get out of the heat. So I would try to pop in there a couple times a day, and I think the foreman showed me at one point the little emergency exit that goes into the portrait hall down below, and so I would sometimes walk in that way, and of course the guests are all in the hallway. They're half blind because they've been out in the sun all day and can't see anything still because they haven't been in there long enough to let their eyes adjust. And then all of a sudden this 6'5" thing in white pops out of the side door, into the hallway. And I used to get a pretty good reaction out of that. I didn't do it intentionally, but they just figured I was part of the show, I guess, because they were all standing there waiting for things to jump out at them. And all of a sudden I would come through that side door into the hallway, and you'd have a bunch of people jumping back and screaming. But I said, it's okay. Just me, just the cleanup guy. So.
Yeah, see, I would when I would work over there, I would if I was going inside or if I was leaving the inside of the mansion to go out, I would always try to do it as inconspicuously as possible. It's probably pretty hard to, or when I was coming in too, but if you're 6'5", it's kind of hard to do that inconspicuously.
I mean, there was just no easy way to come in that door without scaring the daylights out of people because they couldn't see. I mean, they'd only been in the building for a couple of minutes, and after being in the bright sunshine, it takes a while for your eyes to adjust. So, and that hall's so dark anyway that, but that was an easy way for me to get in there and get up to where the ride entrance, started, and then back out through the elevator. So, it was just, it was a little side entertainment, I guess, for the janitorial staff.
So did you ever, being over in the mansion, you didn't have to help out with parade cleanups or anything like that?
I did.
Oh, yeah.
I had parade duty every day. I went out to, I guess it was like 3:15 or something. Mm-hmm. I'd go out to the entrance to Frontierland and meet my foreman, and the parade that year was called America on Parade.
Oh, yeah.
And it the last unit in the parade were like 2 or 3 things that looked like mountains, and they spit confetti out the top.
That's always good.
Yeah, I thought that was the dumbest thing. But then, of course, this is Disneyland, so they do things the way they want to do them. And my foreman had one of those big gasoline-powered vacuums. And I, along with 2 other guys, would have push brooms. And so as soon as the parade passed, we went down Main Street, and we had to push broom all the confetti off the sidewalk into the street. And then the foremen were running up and down the street with the vacuums. And, that gave us something different to do every day. But yeah, that was a regular thing. So.
And they had the
Yeah,
go ahead.
we had those gas powered vacuums too.
Yeah.
And
I guess in later
Yeah.
years they've used like leaf blowers to blow the stuff off the sidewalks, but we had to actually push broom it. So
yeah, it's and they've switched to some of the stuff. They switched from gas powered, it's gas or diesel powered to electric, and which is good because sometimes we would vacuum up like a lit cigarette or whatever and start a fire in one of the gas powered vacuums. That was always fun.
well, I know there was usually two of them going at once, and it made a heck of a lot of noise going up and down
Yes.
because it just rattled the windows as we were running down Main Street. But that's the show they wanted to put on, so that's what we did.
The mate.
Yeah, adding confetti to any show or parade always increase the costs for cleanup because it's like once you do that, it's like, all right, we got to get the vacuums and the blowers and yeah.
Yeah, the parade cleanup would have been nothing without that. I mean, it'd just be the usual stuff you get when people stand in one place for 30 minutes. But yeah, it was. I remember the first day standing out there and I'm standing there, the guy had given me the broom and everything. I said, "Well, what are we waiting for?" He says, "Watch." So here comes the mountains spitting confetti out everywhere. So okay, well, I see what we're going to do now. All right, so.
And the Main Street Electrical Parade was going on that summer, right?
I think it was. I didn't have anything to do with it because I was either working in my area. In fact, I think the other guy that worked out in my area had the late parade duty.
Oh.
But yeah, I never worked that one.
But you got to listen to the jazz bands at the restaurant at the French Market, right?
We had the jazz bands. We had everybody who was anybody still in the big band business was performing at Carnation.
Oh yeah.
And the Tomorrowland stage was still going. So you had big name acts, that would come in for the whole week at the Tomorrowland stage. That's the only time I probably got in any sort of trouble with them was because I wanted to stay and see one of the shows. And I didn't quite do it the way that you're supposed to do it. So
Yes.
my boss had a little talk with me about that, but we straightened it all out. So.
And so you worked there for the summer of '75,
Mm-hmm.
and then you decided. What was the decision to? What was your stat? Do you remember what your status was? Was it? They probably have changed over the years, but when we were there was a status called casual, temporary, or casual seasonal.
Yeah, I think I was technically seasonal, although I was hoping for what they called permanent part-time, where you'd get regular hours during the week. But they had hired. I was one of the last guys hired, and they had hired so many guys that I wasn't going to get a spot.
Right.
And I could have stayed on as a seasonal, but looking at other things that I needed to do and everything, I didn't think it made sense. So I think I worked my last shift the Friday after Labor Day, and it was a private party night for LAPD or something. And I was that was the one time the entire summer that I worked trash. And over in Tomorrowland, I hadn't been in Tomorrowland the entire summer, hadn't done trash the entire summer. But
Lots of donut boxes. Lots of donut boxes. Oh, never mind. Sorry, bad joke. Never mind. Did you work any other areas? You were just. Okay. So you worked Main Street, and you did the Haunted Mansion area a lot.
yeah, I did Main Street 2 or 3 shifts at the very beginning. In fact, the one that stands out in my mind was July the 4th. It was one of my first shifts at Disneyland. Was July the 4th, and they assigned me to the hub. And I remember I remember my foreman telling me, you're not supposed to stop. You're supposed to keep going. You can't watch the fireworks, can't do all that stuff. Well, of course, the fireworks are at 9 o'clock back then. So at about 5 minutes to 9 o'clock, everything in the hub literally froze in place. If I had died of a heart attack, I would not have hit the ground. I was so packed in there, and and I'm standing and I realize I can't do anything. I'm just because I had to knock 58 guests out of the way just to go 50 feet. So I stood there and watched fireworks with them because I really didn't have a choice. There wasn't anything I could do. But that was the busiest spot I'd ever been in the whole time I was there. And I think I was called in once to do a shift in Fantasyland to fill in for somebody that couldn't be there. And so I worked the area around the Teacups and Alice in Wonderland and all that stuff.
Do you remember your managers or, anyone from the supervisors, anyone in management, whether in custodial itself or probably janitorial back then, but or anyone else in park management?
Yeah, well, I remember I believe Ron Dominguez was the guy in charge at the time, and I remember seeing him in the park a couple of times. But as far as my direct managers or foremen, I really don't. It was kind of funny. The day before my interview for Disneyland, I knew that they had a pretty strict dress code and hair policy and all this stuff. So I went to the barber and got, with the exception of a buzz cut when I was a kid, I got the shortest haircut I'd ever had in my life. And went into the interview and after, when the guy's getting ready to, he kind of looks at me and he says, the hair looks good. He says, but that's about as long as you can have it. And it's funny, I don't think I got it cut the entire rest of the summer. It was so short. But my foreman obviously had much longer hair than I did, but he would grease it back every day so that it was off of his ear, and he could technically make the dress code. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I would try the same thing. When my hair was getting too long to meet standards, I would end up, trying to just flatten it to the side of my head and kip it off my ears, and make it to my next time where I could get it cut.
Yeah, that's pretty much what thinking of in terms of the employees and everything back then, cast members. Excuse me, I've been out of Disneyland for too long. But it was a different employment environment completely in 1975. Disneyland had their choice of who they wanted to hire.
Right.
And it was the employer of choice for anyone who was like a college kid or something like that, and a lot of teachers and, school employees worked there seasonally, but it was a different group of folks that worked in there. I mean, this is probably terribly politically incorrect, but you never saw anybody that was significantly overweight working in the park when I was there.
Right.
In the public area, you just never did. They didn't get hired. Tattoos, all those people worked at Knott's Berry Farm. To be honest.
Well, if you were overweight, they used to tell them, we don't have costumes in your size.
Okay.
Wow.
Then they started letting them work backstage jobs, and then it was, once they were like, well, this is the American public now, so it was like, all right, we've got to start hiring people and buying, having larger costumes and stuff like that. So,
well, and the job market definitely changed. I mean, they couldn't be as picky as they had been, and of course, once they opened California Adventure and they had thousands of more jobs they had to fill, and
we were there. We were there for that, so we really saw that, where it was like, one of the guys that we worked with, he had been a busser at one point, and then when busing got ripped away from custodial in the early 90s, and he didn't want to go to be part of the restaurant, the foods operations, so he was like, no, let me transfer over to be a sweeper. And he just shook his head at it all, and he was like, what is it now? It's like, you walk upright, you know what fire is? Okay, you're hired. Yeah, he just couldn't believe it.
It was a different. It was just a different job market back then, and they could really be picky. And of course, the women that were hired to work at the mansion or Pirates, were just stunning. Every one of them. I mean, you'd love to have been involved in the hiring process there, but
Golden Horseshoe,
yeah, all those things, and but that was the nature of the beast in 1975. When they could be really picky and choosy, and they didn't have as many positions. I mean, they had a lot, obviously, but you've got a lot of things that have opened since then. A lot of attractions, Toontown, and all this other stuff. So even just within the park, they've added quite a bit.
Well, I think being a lead for Ken and I, it had its challenges during that time after California Adventure opened, and like you're saying, there was, they couldn't be picky because they needed more people, and we would get people that we didn't know who they were, but we'd see their name on the schedule and we'd just put them on trash or whatever, and then they would show up, and nothing personal to someone's age, but they would be a lot older, and we had them on trash, and they looked like they were having a hard time walking, and I'm like, oh no, like, are they going to be able to dump trash? And I didn't want anyone to get hurt on, because I put them on trash, so I'd have to switch things around, and sometimes the shift, didn't fit now because I switched things, and it had its challenges in that way, for sure.
Yeah, I've noticed, the client, the cast member base is, the age. There's certainly significant age differences now than there were when I was there. I mean, if there was an older employee, and by older I mean probably 40s, or older, then they were probably in supervision or, in some form of management somewhere. They weren't new hires.
Yeah, and I think that's everywhere now. I think that people are having to work longer. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
But they're in these jobs longer or whatever, or they end up returning to these jobs, or whatever. I mean, we knew people who had been laid off from some professional position somewhere, and then they ended up working and sweeping at Disneyland. So it happens,
Yeah, I mean, of course, at the time I was there, I was making $3.50 an hour. So you can imagine. I don't know what their base pay is today, but
it's about that. No,
at that yeah, at that time that actually wasn't. I mean, it was a little more than minimum wage, but
Yeah.
it was for a college kid, you could do okay on that. So.
for sure. Yeah, I think it's a good job if you're in school. I don't know nowadays, but I know that when I was there, and I even went back to school later, that they were really accommodating for me. So they had the ticket books back then too, the A3.
Yeah.
No fast pass, but they had the the coupon books. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, every attraction had somebody tearing tickets, and that was true, of everything back then, of course. And he also had ticket kiosks, located throughout the park, where you could buy additional tickets at that time. Yeah, and then if you got one of the if somehow you managed to get one of the magic golden key tickets, I don't know if you remember those.
No.
Those were, yeah. Sometimes if an employer had a deal or something, it was basically a book of tickets that would get you on anything in the park.
Wow.
It was like having a book of e-tickets, although it would get you on anything. And those were like magic back then, because if you had those, you literally could do whatever you wanted. It didn't matter what was in your ticket book.
Where do you remember where the nearest booth was to buy tickets that was near the mansion area?
We didn't have one out there. I think there was one over towards Frontierland, and I know there was one in Fantasyland.
And Adventure, I think, had one by Jungle Cruise. I don't remember.
Yeah, it could have been. Could have been. My side of the park just got so quiet at night. I guess they didn't feel like they needed to put extra ticket opportunities out there.
I imagine you wouldn't find a whole lot on the ground because they were worth something.
No, I probably found 8 or 10 the whole summer, and I turned them in because you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So, but I really didn't find. I really didn't find a lot. I mean, I think I found a camera one time, and that kind of stuff. That people just get up and walk away and forget. And a kid one time.
Yeah.
But I didn't keep him either. I found a home for him. So.
What kind of challenges do you think? I mean, you as a visitor in the park, you can kind of see what the custodians are doing now. But what kind of challenges do you think you had then that they maybe don't have now?
Well, I think it's gotten a lot harder today than it was when I was because of the traffic.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially on that side of the park, Fantasmic and Splash Mountain have just dramatically changed, the west side over there, from being just a sleepy little burg at night to just being chaos. I mean, we literally the other night had to take our footsteps about 3 inches at a time.
Wow.
I mean, it was that when you got to the entrance to Critter Country, as we were coming out of Critter Country, from there all the way to the train station, it probably took us 10, 12 minutes.
Wow.
To cover that distance.
Yeah, the hub gets really. I mean, it's right after the fireworks or whatever on the hub, it's just the same thing. It's just they've tried to take steps. They put the walkways behind Main Street now, and they've widened the walkways in the hub by reducing the landscaped areas. But it's just really it's such a packed in crowd.
Well, and one of the things that complicates it today too is the fact that they close off Fantasyland for the fireworks.
Yeah. And
you can't get across the drawbridge. You can't get around so you have to, if you want to get to Fantasyland for a while there, you've got to go all the way around, the big loop around Thunder Mountain and around the back. And so it really piles the people up, because we sure noticed that the other night. And you don't even want to try to get on the trams after the fireworks. So.
Wow. Yeah. It's even changed since Ken and I've been there. I mean, we had our times when it was crowded. Obviously, the 4th of July and the big dates and Saturday nights and stuff. But for the most part, the crowds have definitely increased over the past 10 years, I'd say.
Oh yeah, I never had a day at the Haunted Mansion that was as busy as I see regularly over there now. I mean, yeah, we would be busy, but most of the people would be heading into the line, or heading through the area. But now, of course, they shut off the whole riverfront. I don't know what time, but sometime in the evening, the whole riverfront gets shut off for Fantasmic, so you can't walk that way.
Yeah.
And it forces all the traffic down that lane that runs right in front of the mansion. And I mean, if I had that when I worked there, I mean, it'd been a nightmare. I don't know how you would do it, to be honest with you. I don't know how you'd be able to work the area with that kind of a crowd there.
Was Bear Country part of the New Orleans Bear Country? Like, was that all one area like it is now?
Well, it was as far as sweepers. You mean as far as sweepers?
Yeah, like the foreman.
Well, as far as the foreman would.
Yeah, the foreman. Yeah, the foreman covered that whole area. The guy that opened New Orleans Square in the morning would have the entire area until I got there about 1:30, and there was also someone that came on in Bear Country about the same time. So we would have, then we'd have individual guys in those areas. But the morning guy, that one shift that I worked in the morning, I pretty much had that entire side of the park until the guy came on into the mansion. So.
Well, I bet Bear Country was pretty dead. I mean, at night, because that's even further from the mansion, past the mansion.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that busy during the day.
Yeah.
I mean, because the only thing you had back there were the canoes and the restaurant and the Country Bear Jamboree, which, it was never terribly busy. I mean, they might back the lines up in the lobby there for a while, but as far as the area goes, there wasn't a lot to do down there on that end of the park. So, and at night, yeah, it just completely it completely died out at night.
Do you remember did you see any like celebrities during the time you were there?
I don't think I did. I saw a couple guys ushered out by who got more attention than they wanted from security, but not because they were celebrities, but because they were being idiots.
Yeah.
So, no, if they wandered through my area, I didn't notice them, because usually they would have, if at that time anyway, they would usually be escorted by, some kind of a guide or security guys or something. So, no, we just had lots of people.
They stick out more now, I think, than they probably did then.
They probably do, just because you get a little knot of people moving along. It kind of gets folks' attention.
Paparazzi will follow them into some of them anyway. The paparazzi will now follow them into the park.
Oh, really?
And Disney now, like, they'll have them. Sometimes they'll agree to pose, and Disney will, put it up on their blog or whatever. But other times it's just, they just don't want to draw that much attention to themselves, and the paparazzi will chase them anyway.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I do remember seeing one of the Boston Celtics, and it's only because the guy was so blooming tall that he's.
Yeah, they stick out. The professional basketball players stick out. I mean, when you're watching it on TV, they don't stick out because they're sitting next to each other. But when they're walking through Disneyland, it's like, oh, that must be a basketball player.
Yeah, and then I recognized who it was, but that's probably the only guy that jumped out at me, during the summer I was out there.
And since it was a Boston Celtic, you hit his knee, right? So that,
I tried to boo discreetly as he went by. So.
Well, so what was your, how was it determined that you were gonna leave? I mean, you realized you weren't going to be picked up on a permanent basis, and
I mean, if I couldn't get permanent part-time where I could get some regular hours every week, then it wasn't going to make sense for me to stick around and just do seasonal.
Yeah.
I needed, some regular income to go. So we mutually agreed to part ways, after that, after Labor Day. And I don't regret the decision to leave, because it was the right thing at the time. But I don't know if I would have stayed around longer if I would have stayed in janitorial, or if I'd have gone and looked, for another department. So,
did they give you a choice when or did they just assign you to janitorial?
Well, I actually applied to work security, and the guy was ready to hire me for security, and he called the security office to check on my age. I was 19. And they called back and they said, sorry, we can't have a security guy under age 21 because you might have to testify in court. So
19-year-olds are untrustworthy, or?
Well, it's just that they're not, I guess, as far as, legal testimony goes at that time. Now, that may be different now. But so on my application, my friend had told me, he says, apply for what you want, first, but make your second choice janitorial, because they're always looking for people there, And so that's what I did, and that's how I ended up in janitorial. I probably, of course, I didn't know, I really didn't know what was open in the park, because they didn't advertise that. You just went in and applied, and then you see what they offer you.
Do you still? Obviously, you said you were there the other night, but are you an annual pass holder?
Yeah, we were annual pass holders from '87 to about 2008, and then we about that time my kids were in high school and decided they didn't really want to go to Disneyland much anymore. And but now that they're out of college and gone, and we don't have to worry about them, we just re-upped our annual passes here in July.
Oh, nice, cool. Well, really appreciate you coming on the show, Rick.
Well, yeah, I like I said, I enjoyed the book. Brought back a lot of memories, and I learned a few things that have happened since I was working there. And it was kind of fun for me just to mentally compare the job that I had way back when the park was different to what it was when you guys were there.
Yeah, I knew that we would get custodians, our former custodians that work there, that would buy our book, but I'm actually been really surprised on how many have been buying it that used to work there, and then hearing their stories, which is really cool.
Well, it's we all had that common experience. The brothers of the broom, I guess you call them. But so we've all done the job, and it's just, I guess we should kind of share a common bond when you've done something like that in a place as unique as Disneyland.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Rick, and we'll probably talk to you again sometime.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, well, that concludes episode 164 of the Sweep Spot podcast. I want to thank Rick Moore again for coming on the show. It was really nice to talk to another custodian. Unfortunately, we don't get to have as many on as I hope we would, but I think we're going to try to get more in the future here.
Yeah, I think the book is generating some interest in that. So hopefully we'll have some more former custodial people, and we'll get some different perspectives, get some sort of because this guy, 1975, I was 2 years old.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I have pictures of me at Disneyland about that time, because it might have been 76, but somewhere in there, and it just kind of put a time on it when I think about that. Like, wow, yeah, I was 4 years old. So yeah, really interesting to have someone on from different decades, and we need to have more of those. But I also wanted to mention a few other things before we go. You can leave a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate that. If you've been listening to the show for a while now, and you have a moment, we'd really appreciate it if you went over to iTunes and left us a review. Also, I wanted to mention again that you can get our book, Cleaning the Kingdom, at our website. Is the best way to do that if you want a paperback copy. If you want an electronic version of that, you can go to Kindle or Nook. And
Cleaning the Kingdom, Insider Tales of Keeping Walt's Dreams Spotless.
So yeah, if you're a fan of this show, you will definitely like this book. Another thing, you can go to our website and check out the show notes for this episode and the past episodes, and notes from the current events that we talked about. And also you can go on there, and we have a recommendation list of books that we have read or that we think are good Disney books. And Russell's added some on there, and I've given him some to add to that list. So go on over there, check that out. And also our t-shirts are still on sale. So you can go over there to our website and do your shopping, because Christmas is just a few months away.
There's no better Christmas gift than something you get through our website.
That is right, Ken. Well, we will have more information on upcoming events where we're going to be signing books, and like we mentioned in the intro, hope to see you out at September 26th. And check our Facebook page, Cleaning the Kingdom, and the Sweep Spot page for more information on these events and the exact times and locations and everything. And we'll have that on our website too, links to that. So I think that will do it, and I want to thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk with you next time.